The house had been silent for hours. It was the kind of silence that comes late in the evening, when the world has tucked itself away and even the distant hum of traffic fades into nothing. David sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea gone cold between his hands, staring at a laptop screen that had stopped making sense an hour ago. That's when he heard it. At first, it was so faint he thought he'd imagined it. A soft sound, barely audible beneath the wind. He paused, listening. Nothing. Then it came again, a low, rhythmic scratching, something that didn't belong. David moved through the darkened living room toward the front door. The sound continued, steady now that he was listening for it, desperate, weakening. He flipped on the porch light and looked down. There at the base of his door was a German Shepherd dog, not sitting, not standing, collapsed in a heap, one front paw extended, dragging weakly against the wood. That was the sound, the scraping of a paw that had nothing left to give but this one final plea. David's hand froze on the doorknob. The German Shepherd dog was large, maybe a German Shepherd mix, but it was hard to tell beneath the matted fur and grime. Its coat was crusted with mud and something darker, blood, maybe infection. Even through the glass, David could see the ribs pressing against the skin, each breath a visible shudder. But it was the eyes that stopped him. Dark and glassy with exhaustion, but aware, painfully aware. The German Shepherd dog was looking through the door as if it knew there was a person on the other side. That this door, this moment, was its last chance. Every logical thought screamed at him to step back. This was a stray, a sick, injured stray. It could have rabies, it could bite. Getting close to an animal this desperate was dangerous, but he didn't step back. He unlocked the door. The sound made the German Shepherd dog flinch, but it didn't move. It couldn't, it just lay there watching him with those desperate eyes as he slowly eased the door open. David crouched down, making himself small. He was a tall man and he knew how he must look to a frightened animal. "Hey," he whispered, "it's okay." German Shepherd dog's ears twitched. No growl, no bared teeth, just exhaustion so complete it had burned through fear. David extended his hand and waited. Up close he could see more. The swollen belly tight beneath the filthy fur, the infection crusting one back leg where the skin had been torn open, the way its whole body trembled from the effort of simply existing. And then he saw the frayed collar hidden beneath the matted fur. Someone had owned this German Shepherd dog once, and then let it go. David stood and stepped aside, pulling the door wider. "Come on," he said softly. "Come inside." For a long moment nothing happened. Then with a sound that was almost a whimper, the German Shepherd dog moved. Its front legs scrabbled against the concrete and it hauled itself forward in inches. The back legs dragged, leaving a thin dark smear on the porch. Each movement cost everything. The German Shepherd dog pulled itself over the threshold, into the light, into the warmth, and then it collapsed. The head dropped to the floor, the eyes closed. For one terrible second, David thought it was dead. Then he saw the ribs expand, still breathing. David brought water first, setting it down nearby. The German Shepherd dog's eyes opened, tracked the movement, but it didn't lift its head. He backed away to the far wall and sat, making himself unthreatening. He waited. Minutes passed. Then slowly, agonizingly, the German Shepherd dog lifted its head and drank. Small, careful laps, as if even this required rationing. When it finished, it looked at him, and David looked back. "You're safe now," he said quietly. He gathered supplies, towels, warm water, antiseptic, gauze. He spoke softly as he moved closer. "I'm going to clean that leg. It's going to hurt. I'm sorry." The German Shepherd dog's body tensed, but it didn't move away, didn't growl. The wound was worse than he'd thought, a deep gash crusted with infection. David cleaned it as gently as he could. The German Shepherd dog flinched once but made no sound. It simply endured, muscles rigid, breathing hard. When he wrapped the leg in gauze, the German Shepherd dog did something that made his throat tight. It rested its head on his knee, just resting. A simple, trusting gesture. David placed his hand on the German Shepherd dog's head, and the German Shepherd dog's eyes closed. For the first time in what must have been weeks, the German Shepherd dog slept. On the third night, David woke to a sound, a low, rhythmic whining. He rushed to the living room, heart pounding, and found her giving birth. She was on her side on the towels he'd laid out, body contracting in powerful waves. She looked up at him, and in her gaze was something he couldn't name. Trust. The first puppy came an hour later, tiny and impossibly fragile. The mother tore open the sack and licked the puppy until it squirmed and cried. 3 more followed. Each time she performed the same ritual with a sureness that seemed impossible for an animal so depleted. When the last puppy was nursing, the mother collapsed. Her sides heaved, but her head stayed up watching her puppies. Then her eyes found David's across the dim room, and finally she laid her head down. Weeks passed. The mother, he called her Sable, grew strong. The wound healed. The puppies grew and found homes with good families. But as David watched the last family drive away, he felt the weight of what came next. He should find Sable a home too, a real home, a family. He looked down at her, at the way she leaned against his leg, her tail wagging. "You want to stay?" he asked. Her tail wagged faster. "Yeah," David said. "Me too." 6 months later, David was hiking with Sable on the old logging trail when his foot slipped on loose scree. He tumbled down a rocky slope and came to rest 20 feet down, wedged against a fallen tree. Pain exploded through his ankle. His phone had flown from his pocket, screen shattered, useless. He was alone, miles from anywhere. Sable appeared at the top of the slope and barked once, urgent. She picked her way down to him, sniffed his face, his leg. "I'm stuck," David said. "I need help." Sable climbed back up the slope. She looked back at him once. Then she ran. David's heart sank. She was scared, running away, but then he heard voices. 2 hikers appeared at the edge, faces creased with worry, and beside them, panting but standing her ground, was Sable. She had found strangers and led them back, had understood he needed help. David looked at her as the hikers called for rescue, as she pressed herself against his side. "Good girl," he whispered. "Such a good girl." Later in the hospital, a nurse brought Sable to his room. The hikers had stayed with her, made sure she wasn't lost. Sable crossed the room and rested her head on the edge of the bed. David buried his fingers in her fur and cried, for the fear, for the loneliness he'd carried before she arrived, for the impossible grace of being found by something he'd once found. 3 months later, David stood on his porch in the evening light. Sable sat beside him, watching the world with quiet intelligence. He thought about that night, about the sound in the dark, about how close he'd come to not opening the door. She'd had every reason to distrust humans, but she'd crawled to his door and asked for help. And when he needed saving, she'd remembered. 2 broken beings who'd found each other in the dark and decided to trust. David crouched down and wrapped his arms around Sable's neck. "Thank you," he whispered. The world continued around them. But here, on this porch, there was only this. A man and a German shepherd dog, and the quiet understanding that they were no longer alone.